and welcome to Access Chat. We're delighted to be here today with Tony Ellis. Tony is a toy maker by background and has now focused on using his inventiveness and creativity and background in the field to turn his attention to solving the problems relating to disability. So, Tony, great to have you with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and the amazing stuff that you're doing in robotics and healthcare right now?
Yeah, so I started off as a toy inventor 20 years ago, and which is a great sector to be in as an inventor, because it's the big manufacturers really like toy inventors, because it means that their R&D departments and new product development departments be quite small, because they can get all the sort of smart people around the world doing all the work for them, and they all these toy inventors flock obviously to the big manufacturers to get licenses. And so I started, and it was very, very difficult at the beginning, because as an inventor, it's a feast-famine situation, whereby, you know, at the start you've got no royalties coming in, so you've somehow got to wait. It takes about 2 years before you get your first licenses in that's actually making royalties. So I literally tried to do anything I could to make money while I was in the invention stage, and I would write code for people, and I did lots of sort of freelance work. And then I got my first 2 or 3 items away, and they did really well, and I won. I think the third one I won a toy award with quite quickly. And then I got known in the industry, which is very important, because normally you have to, with toy invention, you have to have an agent, and an agent wants 50%, mostly. So you have to give up half of all your royalties. But I managed to sort of break America, which is what every toy inventor's dream, on my own. Yeah, we can't break, but it was on my own. Yeah. It is, because you know, you've got the most wonderful companies like Mattel, who I've licensed to. You've got Hasbro. You've got all the best companies, all the best toy companies are there. So I mean, that's what we want to do, and it was really good. I was able to do it without paying 50%, because I started getting a good reputation. The big companies allowed me to see them. See what would happen with if you take, for instance, Mattel. Normally they won't see a regular inventor guy, because they get all sorts of crank and crazy people trying to sell them the most strangest things. So you have to go through an agent, because the agent filters out all the people that want to put square pegs in round holes and things like that, because you'd be surprised at what people think they've invented. But because of my reputation, I was able to go direct to Mattel. And my biggest toy, which is Cube World, sold in multi-millions. There was 27 different TV adverts for Cube World, and my royalties were so good that it used to be like a book. Every quarter they used to come in, and it's like that thick, and that's all the sales across all the different countries, because Mattel are so big. And so that was a dream, but it's hard work getting there. I mean, you know, that's the big success. I would normally develop or invent maybe 100 concepts a year, and on a really bad year, I got maybe 4 licenses, and on a really good year, I got 14 or 15 licenses, which is good, because normally a toy inventor has 1 or 2 hits, or 3 if they're lucky, but because it's just my nature, I just persevere, sort of thing, and I used to call it throwing the spaghetti at the wall, but you know, by doing at least 100 concepts a year, you're going to get something. You're going to get, and especially if you start to really understand the toy market and what kids want, and so on. So I've ended up in those years licensing 65 different concepts. And they've all fortunately made money, and you know, to some of the very, very big players, and across America, Canada, some great companies in Canada like Spin Master, and in the UK, and I've won a couple of toy awards, and it took me and my wife. I mean, literally took us around the world. We would be in LA, because I love LA. That's where Battelle is, in El Segundo. But we'd be in LA like 4 times a year. We'd be in New York for the toy fairs. We'd be in New York 3 or 4 times a year. We'd be in Dallas because we were with Radica, and so on. So we had this wonderful time. It was a dream. We were,
Tony, yeah. I have a question or question comment. So I know you did this before we went on air. So yeah. Do you mind turning around and showing our audience some of the toys you're talking about? I mean, just since you have the toys in your office, we're in your toy workshop. Yes. So I was just wondering if maybe you could just take us on a little tour, because I know I thoroughly enjoyed when you did that.
These are a fraction of the actual toys from the license. It's about 20% here, but now it's quite right. Okay, so if I go like that and pan it, you can see I've even done an Ali G doll. Would you believe? There's an Ali G doll that there's the Discovery Channel toys which I've done. These let you they let you hear bats, and they let you Heterodyne sounds, and Thomas the Tank Engine.
Truly a magical toy store in here.
Yeah, yes.
I see Homer, and how fun.
Yeah, I did 5 Simpsons product. I'll pan back onto the robot to Dewey, but I think the light, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take the light off there, because it's the light probably is, that's it. That's going to be better. Oh, that's better.
Yeah, so, wow. I want that for Christmas for my son. $10.98. Oh no, sorry.
It's responded to my voice, which is just another prop. But this is based on the spaceship in the film Silent Running. These are drones from the film Silent Running with Bruce Dern, which is a 1973 film, and it's just a fabulous film. If you've unbelievable,
I've seen it. It's odd too.
And this was the forerunner to R2D2. This is Drone 1, which is Dewey, and so on. So, we are all up.
But you also tied all this magic that you were doing into assistive technology, which I thought was so cool, because to be an inventor, robotics, toy maker, and then you're tying it also. And I love how all these things are coming together. It's fascinating.
Yeah, if I go down to the AT part of the shelf, you can. So sorry, but it's quite difficult to do this when you're.
Yeah, sorry, I'm making you.
Yeah, no, but I'm pleased to be doing it. But there's some of the AT devices, and yeah, I can explain that, because what happened was I've been ever so lucky. I've been an inventor, and I've done very well. And I've had a great career because of the obviously the toy industry. But when your product's selling in millions, you might only get like 35p for every sale, but if they're in millions, there's a lot of 35p, you see. So I always wanted to, right from the start as an inventor, I always wanted to do good things for good. I wanted to use my technology and my ideas to help people. And so that's why I sort of retired from toy inventing about 3 years ago. And then I started to do the assistive technology work, because it's such a wonderful thing. When you see someone, you're helping someone, it's just amazing to see. Like, for instance, when we tested MBT, which is my technology that lets your breath control. I have to turn her off on because I've got an Alexa here. Should have thought. Otherwise, the Alexa will answer. No, so MBT can control Alexa with your breath. And it processes your breath in a very clever way. It's not the air movement. It's not the sound or anything like that. I won't say that the secret of it, because it would let away how it works, the sort of thing. That commercially, I don't really want these companies that sell this stuff for about £1,000 a time to get onto my tech there. But there is a very clever way that there's an element in your breath that the MBT processes, and it turns it into speech patterns, and that controls Alexa. So you can do it for almost anything that Alexa does with your breath, and so on. And so I when I first tried that, there was a young lad that we knew that had cerebral palsy, and I had to, because I've never had any backing. I can't get any trials done because, to be honest with you, I've been in this for all this time, but I've found no interest really commercially for my work. It's just one of those things. As I say, this is a sector that obviously inventors aren't known for. So it's obviously I'm seen as probably, you know, the crazy inventor guy. But we did test this on a young guy who he has cerebral palsy, and he is really trapped. He's trapped in a wheelchair. And he can speak, and his voice is sort of it's okay. I can understand him. You would understand him. But what does happen? Alexa, he can't get past the Alexa keyword. And what happens is with Alexa is the keyword is very strict recognition, and the reason for that is that if it wasn't, it'd be going off all the time. In fact, the earlier, I don't know if you had an Alexa at the start, but it was forever going off. I mean, the slightest thing on telly and the Alexa was going off. It didn't even sound like Alexa. And what they had to do, they had to tighten that keyword up on its template so that, you know, it really had to be a good quality Alexa sound or the name. And of course, what that does is if you've got any vocal cord problems, it's just slight or anything which distort your speech, the Alexa keyword doesn't get spoken right. So this lad, he couldn't get past the keyword. Funny enough, if his dad said Alexa and then he asked the question, it would do it, because it goes into the recognition is not so tight after the keyword. But he could never use Alexa. And with MBT, he proved to me that it worked, because we set him up, and within 10 minutes he was turning the radio on, turning the light on. He was getting his book on audio, and this is someone that was literally frozen in a wheelchair. And it was that made me realise I've got to do more, because this is my first item. MBT was my first item, and I thought it was just so wonderful to see his parents and that they were smiling, because for once he didn't have to call for help. He could do so much stuff. Could get radio stations and all that, because Alexa does so much. It's a very underrated resource.
I think there's so many potential things that you can do with speech and home automation that are genuinely assistive and can genuinely give people the ability to do stuff that they can't do right now. But the knowledge of how to integrate this stuff is still quite lacking. And I think I also want to sort of reference the point you made about inventors, right? Because I've worked in the AT industry for about 20 years, and there used to be a joke that we were men in sheds. Now, obviously, your shed's a lot posher, but it's true. It is a cottage industry to a certain extent, with a couple of large players, and they tend to be in the States too. And those incumbents tend to have their technology and be quite defensive about it. So the barriers to entry are quite high. That said, the UK is one of the countries that spends the most on assistive tech around the globe per capita. But again, it's not done in a kind of consistent way. So finding a route, unlike what you experienced in the toy market, where there are 3 or 4 large companies that you could license your ideas to, where do you go with this stuff? I think that's some of the challenge that a lot of the assistive tech industry have faced too, is how do you get this stuff to scale? Because I know, your end users know that this has real benefit, but how do we get this to scale? How do we distribute this? How do we get our ideas seen by the people that can then not just fund it, but get it into the hands of the manufacturers to make it mass marketable, etc.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. You're just absolutely right there. The big players have the market completely sewn up, really, and that's the case. But the trouble is what I get slightly upset, very upset about, is that these big players, the cost of this assistive technology equipment is ridiculous. Now, for instance, I've designed a communicator. I can show. I'll send you some pictures of it. But my communicator is really, really. In fact, if I maybe get it off the. Okay. Right. It's not sweet. Okay, right. Here is the communicator. I'll send you some actual pictures of it when it's activated. But this communicator does everything that all the other ones do. I mean, it can turn into speech. You can, key actions, but it actually works with my face cheek technology, which I'd like to talk about in a minute, where I've designed technology that can control items through slight movements of this face cheek here. And you can type. I can type at 12 minutes per second with just literally moving my slight movements of my face cheek. Think of Stephen Hawking. You don't have to blink, but it's this area here. If you can blink, then this area of muscles is active, so you can actually be completely paralyzed. If you blink, it can detect that. And because I use an XY coordinate, the two sensor inputs can give me the XY on the screen. As I say, I'll send you some pictures of this working, and there's a video as well of the thing working on YouTube. But the thing is that this communicator does sort of more, because it's face cheek compatible, face cheek control compatible, which no one else has got that, and also it's MBT compatible. So you can literally blow in the dual MBT, where you blow on to two MBT sensors, literally just slight puffs either way. And MBT is incredibly focused. So even the sensors can be really close and it will still work with the slightest movement of your head. So that means you can input text through your breath and things like that. Now, I would retail that at less than £500, so that would be with a really good margin for that device. This device. Now, if you look on the major players, I mean, you've got about £3,000, £2,500 to £3,000, going up to £7,000, and mostly all they are rugged tablets. They are literally just rugged tablets, and all that money is just. It's on markup. It must be a huge markup. That's the only thing. Whereby I built my own operating system in this, so it is completely self-contained. It does the whole thing. It does Skype. It does type. It generates speech, and I generate speech in different languages. Plays games. It does emails and so on. All the things that a regular communicator would do. And this would retail at about $499. And
less than the mobile phone.
Yeah, but it's a dedicated device, and it But the thing is, when I first designed it, I'll show you the first design of it was this. This is the first one. Okay, so this is the prototype, so it's not pretty at all. I mean, obviously I 3D printed that one, but the thing is that this proved it all. So I was able to generate make the device, but the thing is that this one looks good, because what I was thinking of is youngsters especially, they want their devices to look good. They don't if you've got this on your wheelchair, the last thing you want is a big clumsy tablet or whatever. And so the design of this device was literally, so I mean it looks really, I've got pictures of it on a wheelchair and stuff. It looks really neat. It's also touch sensitive as well, so you can literally touch. It's touch sensitive, and there's various other inputs for it. It could use standard market input devices as well, like jelly switches and all that. So it does all that, but it does the extra. And that just sort of showed you that what I'm not happy with is the overpricing of the people that need this tech have to pay the most. Yes. And it's like, and I spoke to someone in the know at one point, and they said, "Well, yeah, it's like that because they've got no choice. The NHS, if they're buying these devices, there's no choice. We just have to pay the money." And
so there's a number of different market forces at play in this, because I've previously developed assistive technologies, and what these companies are doing is, they're not necessarily, unlike where you were talking about, you hard-coded everything, machine-coded everything yourself. Yeah. They're licensing components.
Yes.
And what happens is that when you tell a text-to-speech company or an OCR company that you're making an assistive technology, they charge you more for that component than they would if you're going to be doing it for a game.
Yeah.
So when I was doing this for an assistive technology, for the same text to speech voice that a text to speech voice, if I was licensing it for a game, they would charge me, I think it was 15 pence per license.
The license, yeah.
Yeah. It was 7 or 8 times that.
Yes.
Because I was doing it as an assistive technology, because they didn't see assistive tech as something that was scalable. I think that is changing as we see embedded assistive technologies like you've got in your iPhone or your Android device going mainstream, but they're all licensing these components. So there are people essentially applying what are parasitic business models right the way through the value chain, which ends up with the disabled consumers or the health authorities that are paying for this being charged an extortionate rate. And then if you add on top of that the way that the health insurance system in lots of countries works, whereby they have a list price and the insurance pays for it, it means that no one really cares how much it costs because the individual's not paying. So they put these huge prices on. So the whole market structure around this stuff needs to be upended. Now, I know Deborah also had some comments. So I just had to get that bit across because I think it's really important that people understand.
Yes.
But I'll hand over to Deborah.
Well, and I didn't know some of that, Neil. So I thought that was very interesting. And the question I was going to ask was sort of it complements those points, even though it's discouraging to hear that because not everybody has insurance. And so the reality is the people that need this, it doesn't get in their hands, especially in developing countries. But so what I was curious about, how have you tried to go to market with it? And like the stuff you did was Amazon. Did you talk to Amazon about it? Or I was just curious what steps you've taken to go to market.
I first went to Amazon and I got a fantastic feedback from them. And at one point, they were even talking about building a special Echo, which was the first small Amazon device, with MBT in it. They were literally talking about it. And then they completely went off the boil. I don't know why. So it was amazing. I was invited up to London to the Amazon Alexa, the office up there, and I saw. I mean, in LinkedIn, I'm linked in with quite a few of the top people in in the Alexa Amazon link and so on. The other thing I've tried, I've made 155 or probably more now attempts to get back in, and I've been to copious NHS meetings and everywhere. I mean, charities and all sorts of stuff. I've even last year I was invited by Leonard Cheshire, which was really lovely because they really believe in what I'm doing. And my good friend Steve Tyler, I don't know if you know Steve Tyler.
We all love Steve Tyler.
Yes, Steve Tyler, wonderful guy. I mean, he came to visit us, and I was just amazed with him being blind, and this just such a great guy. And I picked him up at the station, and he's so. Likes what we're doing, but he got me into the Houses of Parliament, and we did a Leonard Cheshire event in the Houses of Parliament, and that was really exciting. And there was people milling around and all these MPs and so on. But again, no one seems to follow anything up with the assistive technology. You get amazing interest and especially on LinkedIn, I might get every day I get someone saying, can we talk further and all, about what you're doing and all that. But then you follow that up, then nothing happens basically. But I have tried everything. I've tried, I did try the AT companies, but they don't even sort of reply back because I guess that they probably see me as a bit of a threat. It's a cost thing again. If I bring down, let's right. This is the micro blow, very low cost. This turns your breath into control of Alexa. Now that has got a prime cost of less than £50. Yeah, so this item here that does something that nothing else does in the entire world, could probably retail, if you went on a, well, it's probably about £40. So if you went on a 4 markup, you'd probably be, you're talking about, well, about £150 retail if you were getting a 4 multiplier, which is what most sort of decent items sort of get. So it's a very cheap device. And the thing is with NBT is it's not like sip and puff. NBT works up to 12 inches away from your mouth. So there's no hygiene problems at all. If you know the sip and puff product, the user has to have a straw. And the huge problem there is the straw gets obviously dirty saliva and so on. And then the sensor head gets the saliva in it. So every sort of couple of months, it has to be sanitized. It has to go back and be cleaned and so on. And the sip and puff starts at around £600. So it's a product that does more. Sip and puff can't control Alexa or Google Home either. And so obviously when I think these AT companies see me, they possibly, I don't know, possibly see me as a threat, I guess, because I'm not here to personally to make money. I've done that. I'm very comfortable. I'm here to help people, and that doesn't fit the model of your large corporate company. They're vicious.
I agree. I agree, but I do think, and maybe God knows I can be optimistic, but I believe that's shifting. I believe it's shifting. I work with some of the biggest corporations in the world, and I started seeing the shift last year, but then it shifted quite a bit in January and February and then March. So I think this is the time to talk and more to them, because, and even the assistive technology industry is really trying to figure out who they are. And a lot of it's in the US, but it should be in the US and blah, blah. So I think you're about to see some shifts and changes with that. But Antonio has, let me give the mic over to Antonio.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, I'm quite curious to look at the way how you ideate this type of products. Is this something that you look at the problem and try to see how you can address it? Is this something that you are dreaming on? What can you tell us about your ideation process?
As always an inventor, I look at the problem and try and find a solution. I was in the toy industry. I was not only did I license, but I was contracted to by most of the major players in Europe and America to actually to design stuff under exactly what they wanted under their specification. Because I've got this thing where people think Tony can do it, sort of thing. He can make magic out of things. And the other thing is that because I was a toy inventor, the one big thing is that toys, the prime cost has to be so low, because there's a 4 multiplier on toys, and then so you know, if I sell a toy, or my toy sells for like £9.99 or £10, it has to be produced, shipped from China into the warehouse at £2.50. That's exactly the way it is. So I've had this thing built into me where cost is everything. So the other thing I do in my designs is I look at cost right from the start as well. So I look at the problem and I look at, can it be done? And then can it be done at the right cost? Because you can make the most incredible thing on the planet, but if it's £2,000 a time, you know, and if it's a toy, no one's ever going to buy it. So you have to look into that. And that's where I'm at now. And that's why my products are so low cost, prime cost wise, and because I've valued that right from the start. That's where I start at. There's another item here I can show you, which is it's in the same case as so this controls Alexa with a tap. Yeah, so you have a very slight tap. It doesn't have a switch because it's on all the time. Now by tapping this, you can get Alexa to do things. So if you go
stop, drop in kitchen, call, light, music, radio.
Like,
yeah, I can hear that.
1, play radio. 2, play radio. 3, play radio. 4.
If I turn Alexa off.
Alexa, play radio. 4.
Here's BBC
Ready
Radio
for the
4.
next command.
There we go.
BBC Sounds. Told on her first day as a guide. Albie Garvin ran the original Walls and River tour, and he said it frequently.
Stop.
It appeared 3 times in the laminated reading material he distributed to new guides, and it became a mantra for everyone he brought on board.
Next command.
She'd come on in '99 when his stick was beginning to make his 90-minute walking tours more of a 2-hour
I've turned it up so loud that
she was in charge.
It's a Laura demo, Tony.
It's a Laura demo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alexa, stop.
4 each day, of which attracted the 3.
That's demos for you.
That's just the energy right now.
Yeah.
Nothing works right
It does work,
now.
but the thing is that this device, okay, it just with a slight, the tap is just so slight.
Stop. Drop in kitchen. Call. Light.
Control lights, music. If you wanted music,
Radio. Read. Flash.
flash briefing. That means it's now that is really simple tech.
Ready for the next command.
That is a really simple tech. I mean, we're talking probably a prime cost of less than £30 for this. So you know, this is. I mean, but that, I mean, this is for elderly as well, where I mean, they're frightened of control or anything. They don't have to talk to Alexa. They can just literally.
Well, my husband needs that. My husband needs it because he's got dementia, and his it is very, very late stage, very terrifying. But my daughter, I know. But my daughter has Down syndrome, and what happens is she's a huge user of technology. But sometimes, especially if she has a cold or something, Alexa will not understand her, and she gets so frustrated. She's like, Alexa, you know. But if she had that, that would just and it almost seems like once she gets Alexa, the AI's attention, she can understand better of what she's trying to instruct her to do, but sometimes the device just doesn't understand her speech patterns.
Yes.
So that would be really cool for her.
And it is so simple again, and so low cost. I mean, literally, I mean, if that was made in volume, I mean, we're talking about Far East volumes, where I mean, we're only talking about maybe 1,000 to 5,000 drops, and that thing could easily be sub £100. You know. Because I'm used to Far East, or we call FE manufacturing. I spent a lot of my inventor career over in China because I was always developing tech that they'd never seen before. So I used to have to go over there, which is great because I love China. I always had to go over there to the vendors, the factories, and you know, take them through the tech. So you know, I know how cost effective it can be, especially tooling as well, and so on. But that just gives you another idea of. An idea came to my head, and Steve Tyler gave me an idea on that one. He was saying about, you know, in some of the Blended Cheshire care homes, the staff have real problems. Not the people, the elderly people there have real problems with the controllers. Because Steve said to me, just look at a standard TV remote. It's got like 40 keys on it. It's, you know, it's all, and if you don't know it, it's incredibly hard to sort of fathom out, you know, if you want to just do simple controls and things like that. Steve said to me, what we need is something really simple. And then that's when I came up, because this is obviously could be a TV, it could be any controller, it could be a TV, so that you touch it once you get ITV and so on. But it just made sense to make something really low cost. And it's in the same sort of family as MBT, as you can see.
Yeah.
Use a custom enclosure at the moment because it's not worth printing that sort of.
Course. Tony, you also you're also making robots.
Yes.
And we're running a little bit long on time, so quickly let's just talk a little bit about the robots that you're also making, because I think that this is also fascinating. So can you tell us a little bit about Altair?
Yes, right. I've been developing robots for 45 years now. The whole reason of all my skill base is because I was a fanatical about robots as a child. When I used to see Lost in Space, and the robot in there is called B9, Danger Will Robinson, and I just loved that robot, and I love Robbie the Robot from the 1956 film. I can't remember what it was called now, but there's this fantastic Robbie the Robot. And so as a kid, I literally started making robots. And that's why I actually developed my first computer in 1979. No one had a computer in 1979. I actually made one. And I had to learn machine code, which was horrendous, and so on. But the whole reason for all that was to build some advanced robotics. And Altair has come out of all those years of evolution, and it's now a very, very sophisticated robot. It's got 6 levels of emotion detection. That means from your face, it can tell if you're happy, you're sad, stressed, or you've got a neutral face, and so on, which is very useful, especially when dealing with the elderly and disabled people, because it can understand how they're feeling. It's very, very accurate. I'm using a system from Omron, which is a huge corporation, and it's their system, and this system is very, very successful now. It's got advanced face recognition, so it can learn up to 1,000 faces, and it attaches a profile to them, the personality profile, and again, it can see faces in very low light, which is very useful now. In the early days, I've been doing face recognition for about 15 years, and the early stuff, as soon as the light went down, that was the end of face recognition. It just couldn't see. But this tech now is so good that it can literally pick up it in sort of almost twilight. Then I've got object recognition. The robot can recognize objects. So, for instance, one of the videos on YouTube shows Altair first examining the drink in its hand, because I've asked it to pour it, and then it recognizes the drink through its recognition circuitry, then has a bit of a spew about what it is, and then goes and literally pours it in front of you, and so on. So it's got the dexterity. And we've got a whole host of medical sensors on the robot. We've got a thermal imager, which takes a picture of whatever it's looking at, and you get multiple pixels of your temperature. So if the thermal imager is looking at your face, it could sort of detect if you've got like flare-ups. Say, for instance, like toothaches and stuff like that, where you would have a flare-up, it would be able to detect the heat in that area, and so on. I've got also, if you touch the robot's claw, it can get your BPM and your blood oxygen. Literally, you just got to touch the claw. There's a sensor on there, an IR sensor on there, which literally, so it gets the BPM and blood oxygen off that. So you don't have to you don't have to do anything special or have any special attachments. And then the robot has got very sophisticated motion. So it's capable of learning. It learns rooms and so on where it's being used in. And it's a thing I call environmental volumetric mapping. It learns rooms and it learns where obstacles are. So it maps. Once it's been in a room for maybe a couple of days and it's been moving around, it will know where the solid objects are, and so it can plot a move against. It's very cool to watch because it finds its way across a room. It's quite complicated. I won't explain how volume occupancy working, but it's if the object is in the same place every time it's in that quadrant, obviously it's going to get a hit. You see, if it's a dog that's in that quadrant that then moves, it's going to get hit. But then the dog moves, then it goes there next time and it's not there anymore. So it's not, and so the system works like video mapping, if you like. Yeah. And so we've got that, and there's a whole host of other sensors, and of course I will send you the specification of the robot. The robot will run for about 8 hours, and it's all automatic, so it will go back to its charger, and that would be at night time. Now, if it was for an elderly person, the way I envisage that working is that the elderly person would literally have the robot, the charger station would be where their bedroom was, because I want the robot to cover safety-wise them during the night and be there if there's any problems. So the robot then goes and goes into what we call the pod, the charging pod, and then it shuts down its motive functions, but its sensors and the primary processor is all alive. So it's still looking for any problems, like say a shouting or anything that doesn't look right, sort of thing. It's got quite a form of autonomy in it. and so on. So it's looking. It can do things like it can detect where the person is and if they've fallen over because of the heat sources. It can, if the person's in bed, it knows where it is. But if the person is in a different location and horizontal, it knows that. It can see that, and so it can make these sort of decisions. So if someone's fallen out of bed, for instance, it would know that. And if they was in distress and so on. And the big thing there is companionship. What I want the robots to do is be companions for the elderly and disabled people when they're on their own. And so we've got a simple conversation engine where you can sort of talk to it. And what it does, it brings information in that it can get off RSS feeds and things like that about what you're interested in. So you're interested in EastEnders, for instance. It would, if it found any news about EastEnders, it might be Dot Cotton's leaving the show or something like that, and it would, in the conversation, it would bring that up. So it's not canned conversation. It's not true conversation yet, because I mean we're not that far ahead, but it could be perceived as being it's a friend. It's
bringing some news, right? It's bringing some freshness, and you've got some kind of interaction, even if it's not human. I mean, unfortunately we've reached the end of our time, but I mean it's been fascinating, and we could go on for a lot longer. We'll probably have to have you back again. But we, we're super interested in this stuff, and I love the fact that you're really solving some really thorny problems with the work that you're doing, and desperately keen to make sure that people see this and understand the value in what you're doing. I need to thank Barclays, MyClearText, and Microlink for keeping us on air, and for keeping us captioned. Tony, it's been a real pleasure. It won't be the last conversation we have. Look very much forward to you joining us on Twitter on Tuesday.
Fantastic. Look forward to it.